this month we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people have experienced in different ways over the last year, and that is loss. So loss, grief, bereavement, whatever you want to call it. We tend to think of bereavement as a process that we go through when somebody's passed away, but it's actually a process that's triggered by lots of different losses throughout our lives. So examples of that could be the loss of a loved one, a pet, a baby, a miscarriage, but also the loss of a friendship, a job, financial security, a sense of safety after a trauma, your family home, a relationship breakdown or divorce. There are so many different losses that we can experience. And like I say, the last year, there have been a lot of them for a lot of different people. So this month, we're going to be talking through what it's like to go through a grief process, the stages that people go through during that process, how to cope with it, how to support somebody else through their grief process, and then what to look out for and where to go if you're experiencing really long-term grief or complicated grief. So in terms of some of the emotional responses that you might have to loss or grief, there are 5 predominant emotions. They are not the only emotions that you might experience, but there are 5 main feelings that most people experience. So it can be really difficult to actually be able to accept that someone or something has gone from our lives. We might feel numb, we might not want to acknowledge that it's happened. A lot of people say that they just expect somebody to come walking back in through the door. So really finding it difficult to accept what's happened. The second is sadness. So probably the most universally experienced symptom of grief is sadness. So you might experience crying, feeling upset, but just real feelings of kind of despair, hopelessness, loneliness, a yearning for that thing or that person. The third is anger. So it can also make us feel really angry that we have lost something or something has gone. So we might feel angry with ourselves, with the world, with doctors, with our manager, or with perhaps the person who's passed away. It's really difficult to accept that somebody has gone, and it feels like an injustice and it feels like it's not fair. So we often want something or someone to blame for it. The fourth is guilt. So something that comes hand in hand with grief is guilt. Were there things that you feel like you should have done or said to somebody, ways that you could have prevented the loss? Or guilt about feelings that you might have had since the loss. So sometimes there can be some feelings of relief, and then we tend to feel guilty about feeling relieved. And the fifth is fear. So often hand in hand with loss is change, and change quite often makes us feel fearful. What is life going to be like now? Can I possibly survive without that person or that thing? What about the responsibilities that I now carry? The death of a loved one can often trigger thoughts and feelings about our own mortality. So lots of fears, lots of worries about what's life going to be like now. And then there are physical symptoms that can come with grief as well as emotional ones. So fatigue, feeling just so tired and so drained, finding it impossible to get out of bed or get through the day. Nausea, so literally feeling sick to your stomach about it. And then linked to that is kind of weight loss or weight gain. So weight gain if you're comforting yourself through eating, weight loss if you're finding it really difficult to stomach eating anything. Lowered immunity, so becoming much more susceptible to colds and things like that because you're struggling, because your body is under strain, but because you're perhaps not looking after yourself particularly well. And aches and pains within the body and insomnia, so finding it really difficult to get to sleep at night. So that's a really quick overview of what you may experience emotionally and physically when you're grieving. Next week, we'll be thinking a little bit more about the stages that people go through when they're grieving.